JJK Chapter 261 will not be leaking tonight. Just a reminder that we are still on break, so we have a whole other week of Lobotomy Kaisen to endure. But we are halfway through, so hang in there. The end is in sight. And come hang out with us in the Discord in the meantime. We got a great crew over there, and when the leaks do drop next week, you'll be able to find them there first thing. Now, while we don't have a new chapter tonight, I can still give some of you your fix because I've gotten a few more questions, so we're going to go over those now. But if you're not caught up through 261, spoilers beware. All right, to kick things off, we got this question from Drozrose, who wants to know if it's true that a person's cursed energy amount is fixed from birth and it never grows. And then what about cursed spirits? Can they just become stronger, or are they all stuck at the level they're born? So let's first handle the human side of this. And I would say that yes, for the most part, the amount of cursed energy you can potentially have is basically something you're born with. You can think of it just like a natural talent. And we know this because Yuta Okkotsu, for example, is known to have a tremendous amount. And Gojo couldn't just match that by training per se. Now, obviously, Gojo has the 6 eyes, which kind of levels the playing field, but just total amount of cursed energy isn't something you can really work toward. However, there are exceptions to this. For example, Sukuna is said to have twice the amount of Yuta. Now, it is possible that he was born with that, but that could also be a product of his unique situation being a twin and getting boosted when the twin passed away, similar to how Maki got boosted when Mai passed away. But it also might be that Sukuna has found a way to supplement his cursed energy. One of the random theories I've thrown out in the past is that perhaps Sukuna consuming people, which we know him to do, could supplant his cursed energy or supplement. And then also there are unique cases like Yuji, who wasn't born with that much, but he obviously increased his supply by eating Sukuna's fingers. But again, for the most part, the amount you are going to have, you're going to be born with that capacity. Now, for cursed spirits, they're largely determined by the fears that created them. That's why we have the disaster curses based around these common fears, right? Like with the sea, with the fire, with the forest, and then humanity with Mahito, right? So they are just going to naturally be a lot stronger than a cursed spirit that is born from the fear of stubbing your toe, right? But we do know that cursed spirits can grow, just like a Jujutsu sorcerer. We saw that Mahito evolved after hitting Black Flash and stuff like that. So their strength level isn't just static, they can grow, but I would say their potential is largely based on the fear and the amount of fear and negative emotions, aka cursed energy, that they were ultimately born from. Next up, Trinity wants to know why I think Yuta might have access to all of Kinney's techniques instead of just his base technique. And this is a good point. I definitely don't know how that works. Yuta may only have the body swap and not have things like anti-gravity and cursed spirit manipulation, but from what we can glean based on how Yuta copies a technique, it's from Rika eating something right and then getting it that way. So considering that Rika ate Kenjaku's brain or whatever it was, and presuming that all of the techniques Kenjaku had are etched on his brain, however he managed to do that, right, via his technique, via binding vows, then I would assume that Rika would get access to all of them. But it is definitely possible that he only has the body swap. And then for your second question on which side characters am I worried for, I honestly don't think anyone is safe, but particularly Todo I am worried about, and I believe somebody else brings this up in a question as well, just because I feel like the emotional damage from Todo getting taken out would be massive. And of course, obviously anybody getting taken out would hurt, but just Todo's like lively spirit and optimism in conjunction with how dangerous his technique is. I mean, Sukuna even pointed it out when he showed up. He was like, this guy is a problem for me to be here right now. So I do think that, you know, if this fight continues, then, you know, Sukuna is going to need to start picking some of these people off. Todo could be a big priority. Obviously, you know, Yuta Gojo is the biggest problem right now. But yeah, Todo's technique poses a problem. And then Ui, I don't know if Gege would just have him murk a child like that, and he does seem to be out of harm's way, but we know that Sukuna is annoyed by that teleportation technique, as we saw him try to take him out before Miguel saved him, right? So I do think he's in danger. Again, I really think everyone's in danger, but I am kind of especially worried about Todo. And yeah, here we go. Next up, we got this question from Zay that says, if not Yuta, who do you think Sukuna is going to eat? Hopefully not my Pookie Toto. And yeah, I would honestly be surprised if this series ends without Gege showing us Sukuna eat somebody. In the fan book, it says his favorite thing to do is eat. It says he's a cannibal. He keeps Uruume around to be a chef. So it just feels like something that's been hanging in the air, and we could definitely see, especially with it like getting dark before it gets better, right? So if it's not a Kotsu, who again, Sukuna even said, the cursed brat will be my main dish, so that's a bit ominous. But if it's not him, I do think Toto is high up on the list. Again, I think that would be a very like impactful, emotional death to have. Another one of Yuji's brothers, you know what I mean? Just stripping everything away from him, and it would just be brutal. Ui would also be absolutely brutal, but I don't know if Gege would go that dark. Other than that, Maki would be like rounding out my choices of potential here. I really do not want it to be Toto, but like if that happens, I could see it being him. Next up from Lost Guy here, he's talking about Yuji and Sukuna seeming to be able to do RCT all of the time, and he's wondering if they can extend their cursed energy reserve, or are they just him? And this kind of cites back to our previous question about people's cursed energy reserves being kind of just what they're born with. So I don't think they're kind of cheating insofar as they are extending or supplementing their reserves somehow, but that application with Cleave is really interesting. I'd never thought about that before, but I think it's really just the fact that they are built different. Specifically, Sukuna is built different and has that vast amount of cursed energy like we were talking about, and then Yuji just has the benefit of having had Sukuna in him, so his body is familiar with that special grade jujutsu, as Gege put it. So I think he just has a pretty big supply of cursed energy as well. Obviously nothing like Sukuna, but you know, Yuji's only been fighting for 10 chapters, however many it is, compared to like Sukuna's 50 at this point. It's not that many. But so yeah, I wouldn't compare Yuji and Sukuna's cursed energy reserves, but I think that both of them are just continuously doing it because they are just built different. Next up, we got this one from Omar, and it is a bit longer, and it's more of a theory, so y'all pause to read the whole thing if you want, but it deals with Gojo's return. And he's basically saying that if Gojo lost the 6 eyes in a potential return, then he could kind of make up for that and truly ascend just based on his soul perception. And I do think that soul perception is huge, and just the soul in general. The mind-body-soul connection Gege has been, you know, cooking with this entire manga, and I fully expect more from that connection before it's all said and done. But I would imagine that's most likely going to take place with Yuji and Sukuna more so than Gojo, but anything is possible, obviously. So, you know, if he does come back and he does sacrifice the 6 eyes, then I definitely think that will involve him answering that question, like you say, but I just don't know if I see like a big evolution from Gojo, even if he loses the 6 eyes just based on soul stuff, but we'll have to see. Next up, Aaron wanted me to yap about the 2 clans that were mentioned in reference to Yuta in 261. And I believe I talked a little bit about this in the leaks video, might have been the chapter review video, so check that out if you want. But basically what was happening there is 2 of the big clans in this world are the Sugiwara and Fujiwara, and I hope I'm pronouncing those correctly. And in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, Gojo mentioned that he and Akotsu shared a distant relative in Sugiwara. And so that is like a big thing, you know, that was one of the 3 big vengeful spirits in Japan. However, Uro, during her fight with Yuta, compares him to a Fujiwara. And so in this chapter, they were talking about that, and he was like, wait, were you wrong? Because like she said I reminded them of this, and Gojo says, hey, you might be a descendant of both, which basically makes you extremely blessed. And he's like, you know, you might even be more blessed than me. So we don't really know what that means necessarily, but it could just speak to why Akotsu is built different and so special. Again, aside from Sukuna, he is known to have the most cursed energy out of anybody we've seen. So it could just be part of, you know, fate and destiny. Maybe it had something to do with why he was able to create such a powerful, vengeful spirit like Rika. This is still something that we'll have to see if Gege lets us in on anymore, but basically it's just showing that Yuta has an insane pedigree. And then finally from Shouse here, he wants to know Fire Arrow versus Hollow Purple, which is more lethal? And I'm going to have to get into the weeds on semantics here because more lethal, probably Fire Arrow insofar as it has a higher body count, I'm sure, just based on Sukuna's havoc that he's, unleashed upon the ages. But in terms of which attack is more powerful, just baseline, then I gotta go with Hollow Purple. That's going to do it for this one, y'all. Thank you so much for the support. And again, we got a week left of Lobotomy Kaisen, so come hang out with us in the Discord. And if you like story-driven indie games, I've been streaming some of those recently, so come hang out if that's your jam. Finally, y'all, thank you so much for watching.